Yeah.
Yeah. Mentioned by disappointment.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, I don't, that's.
Oh, you're talking, oh, I thought you were talking about the end of the.
No, I switched over the dotted in as fast as I could.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean. Yeah. I mean, it's appropriate to say.
Yeah.
Without politics.
Is Tara zooming in?
They didn't probably listen to what Deborah was saying. She introduced him and,
He's not on here as a backup.
Out of the park.
and Scott, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How can you don't want to?
Yeah, can you do that? I never did.
Yeah, but it's
Have you
not,
read-
the way I look at it, it's not my finger.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so close.
I don't think that's happened since when I first got here. She had a hard time getting somebody approved.
Well,
Everything.
circus.
I totally thought of that when I watched it. I was like, oh man.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. How you doing,
Good.
Scott?
Okay, good to see you.
Likewise.
I'm doing good, and yourself?
Good. Busy.
You're right.
I know. Yeah. I'm retired and busy, so I know how to be here.
Well, that's good. That keeps you going.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. I tried retirement twice. The first time I was about to go stir crazy in the house, so about a year of traveling and so forth. I said I better go back to work, so I did. And I retired, moved here. It's been busy. Community
Market's so
stuff,
hot.
Yeah.
it keeps me going.
Yeah. How long have you lived here?
10 years
Commercial too.
back here.
I only have like
I actually grew up in Los Angeles,
Okay.
so
Hardly anything left of the calls.
30 years with Edison, retired, and
There's
decided to
still
go
a
to
lot
Atlanta.
of empty stuff though.
I tried
No?
my stay there, just couldn't stand
That
it.
that Tennessee place, what is it,
Humidity, the
WS,
mosquitoes,
moved to the
all that
Times.
Yeah.
They're
and the
on.
pollen.
East Coast of
Don't
the
forget the pollen.
And so.
But other than that, it was beautiful. I really did enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, we are spoiled with the weather.
Oh, yeah.
That.
I moved out here
shopping
sometimes I
center,
was out in the backyard, or sometimes it's in the front.
That one and the one down the street.
So 11:30 or something, out by myself, just looking at the stars,
Were primers.
in the weather.
Seems like there's a lot of empty ones.
Oh,
on one
right.
side. On the one side where it backs up
Yeah. Oh,
against Home Depot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
the unfortunate part is I'm so busy and
I know, yeah, same.
It's like,
Yeah.
It's a big raise.
And they will.
I think like all
Right,
of the community events, it seems like.
Yeah.
are
Oh, what if-
condensed in October, because it's the
Exactly.
best weather.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that,
So there's good sports on TV. Too. It's just like.
Oh, man, I love it. Yeah.
You gotta soak it all up.
Yeah.
That's why I did the.
Yeah,
I was actually afraid to watch the Dodger game.
It's-
Last time I watched the Davis, they lost. I said, I'm not
Everything,
gonna
they
jinx
tore
it.
the parking lot.
Heartbreaker games.
Yeah.
They got redemption.
Well, and that's what I was reading on last year's
They're a lot better
logistics.
than they've been playing.
The major logistic companies are more than
The
willing
first one, though, that guy got caught in the
tomorrow
rundown between second and third.
to get
He
the
just should
right
have kept going,
locations.
to third,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaker.
Welcome, everybody. If you're ready, we'll go ahead and start the work session portion of the meeting. I'll call it to order. And can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Cook Askins,
Present.
Commissioner Thomas,
Present.
Vice Chair Herman,
Here,
Chair Kurth.
Here. And at this time, we will open up for general public comments. Are we showing anyone online that wants to comment?
There are no comments via Zoom.
Is there anyone here in the council chambers that would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing no one, close down those public comments and we'll move into questions of staff and a review of the upcoming agenda items. Does anybody have any questions on item number 2, the vesting track map?
On item, excuse me, on item number 2, the property west of the area that's defined in this particular item, is that going to be residential as well, or I thought I saw something in my reading about it being commercial, something over there?
Yeah, let me double check here.
Maybe it was just my imagination late, but
Yeah, the area to the west is zone C2.
is it? Okay. Okay.
And that's common to see commercial located at the intersection of 2 master plan roadways.
Okay, then any questions on for staff on item number 3, the Old Town Specific Plan?
yeah. So this is to approve having studio units, no less than 320 square feet.
That is correct, just within the specific plan area, and within 3 of the land use districts within the specific plan area. So it would not apply citywide, it would just be within the specific plan.
I would think we were getting away from that kind of thing. That I don't know what anybody else's opinion is, but there's some old motels down there that are just studios, and it seems to attract the wrong crowd.
Can you bring that up during the meeting?
Yeah,
Because then
yeah.
we'll be able to deliberate and talk a little
Okay,
deeper on
all
that,
right.
on those. So keep that thought.
Okay.
Any other questions, technical questions or other on 3? Item number 4 is the public scoping meeting for the general plan update. It came across to me like that was a formality that happens every time we have an update, is to go out to the public on the environmental portion of it to give a chance for people to comment. Is that simply as simple as that?
Yes, before we dive too deep into the environmental analysis, it's good to get feedback from the community on what their concerns are.
Okay.
And we'll have a presentation from our consultant that'll go over the reasonings more in detail and an overview of kind of where we're at in the process.
Okay, that's good. Any other questions on 4? Then number 5 is new business. It's going to be the Senate Bill 9 requirements. Any questions on that item? I'm assuming that I'll wait for the staff report, but it was a little confusing for me reading through this with all the details of the elements and,
Yes,
lot
it's-
sizes with housing. And I know staff will probably break that help us out a little bit on the,
Yeah, senior planner Alex Hadagi put together this write-up. He's going to give a brief presentation to you just as an information item. So you understand this new legislation that goes into effect the start of next year. But it does change what we normally think of a single family zoning district. Even more so than what was allowed under accessory dwelling units.
okay. Any other questions on 5? And then number 6 is going to be we're going to readdress the continued item from the last meeting of the gas station car wash study session. Okay, if there's no other questions on the agenda items, then I will adjourn this work session to the special meeting that we will kick off in about 5 minutes from now at 5 o'clock. Excuse me. Okay, it's now 5 o'clock and I'd like to welcome you all to the special meeting of the Victorville Planning Commission, October 20th, 2021. I will call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cook Askins,
Present.
Commissioner Thomas,
Present.
Vice Chair Harriman,
Here.
and Chair Kurth.
Here.
We have quorum.
At this time, we will have the invocation led to us by Commissioner Cook Askins Jr., followed by the pledge with Vice Chair Harriman.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this meeting this evening of the Planning Commission. We ask a special blessing upon all of the commission, our city council, and all of our city staff members as we make decisions to better our city. And we ask for your presence during this meeting this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Let's face the flag, right hand over the heart, and follow after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I have a quick public participation notice to read. The Planning Commission is interested in hearing from the public individuals who may want to speak on agenda items on issues not posted on the agenda during the public comment section, providing those issues are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Individual speakers may address the Planning Commission once per public comment period and once per each public hearing item for up to 3 minutes. For those attending the meeting in person, and though not required, please utilize the provided iPad located in the chambers to electronically submit the request to speak or complete a speaker card prior to the start of the meeting and place in the clear speaker card box located at the dais counter. If you'd like to comment on a public hearing item, please submit a speaker's card before the public hearing item is announced. For those attending by Zoom, please click the raise your hand feature located on the Zoom screen. Whether attending this meeting in person or via Zoom, once comments are invited, the speaker will be called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. Audience members may not disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of the meeting, and those who do not are subject to a penal code. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. So then with that, we're going to move to agenda item number 1, which is the approval of previous minutes from the September 8th, 2021 meeting and the September 29th, 2021 special meeting.
I, Commissioner Thomas, move approval of the minutes for the stated meeting dates.
Commissioner Cook Askins, second.
Take a roll call vote. Commissioner Cook Askins,
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harriman,
Aye.
Chair Kurth.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda number 2, if we can start off with the staff report, please.
lot, single-family residence or subdivision. Is that better? There we go. Sorry about that. This subdivision is proposed in a single phase, and as proposed, it includes a design in accordance with the single-family design guidelines, including cul-de-sacs that reduce through streets in a dual-use drainage basin, as well as entry landscaping along the frontage. Additionally, the proposed map complies with all Title 16 development standards, including lot size, dimensions, and density. This is a vesting map. We don't see a whole lot of these currently, but a vesting map essentially allows the map to be subject to the development standards in effect today. So should the Planning Commission approve this map, and in the future, if lot size or density or dimensions are adjusted, then this map would be allowed to proceed as it's approved today with the standards in effect today. Environmentally, staff prepared an initial study and mitigated negative declaration, which was routed through the state clearinghouse in accordance with CEQA. This resulted in conditions of approval number 27 through 46 to address mitigation measures for biological resources, cultural and tribal cultural resources, geology, soils, and noise. Additionally, as a result of the environmental review process and as a result of the agency noticing, staff received comments from the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District, and the Mojave Water Agency. All of these comments were addressed via conditions of approval, sufficient to ensure the project and any potential effects to the environment are considered less than significant. That being said, staff recommends the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing, receive testimony regarding the proposed project, and take the following actions. Adopt the attached mitigated negative declaration with a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project, and adopt resolution number P-21-043, approving tentative track map case number PLAN 21-00011, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
Thanks. Are there any questions of Mr. Haragi from the commission?
Just one here. You said dual use drainage. Can you explain that?
Sure. In one of the attachments in the back, there's a conceptual park basin plan. So essentially dual use will fulfill this project's requirements for water quality to ensure on-site drainage is maintained on site. And in the off time when it's not being used in the event of a storm, it can be used as a recreational amenity.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the report. At this point, I will open up the item to public comments and public testimony. Is there anyone on Zoom that would wish to speak to us on agenda item number 2?
Yes, Angel Esparza.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. So this is an approval to approve this project, correct?
For the tentative map.
For the tentative map, okay. So again, I'm Angel Esparza. I've been up there many times speaking on behalf of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, and you know, again, I'll say it again, and it's the same redundant message. When we're building these communities, what are we doing as a planning commission and as a city council to ensure the community that we are selecting we're granting the developer the area, but what is he doing when it comes to selecting responsible contractors to build the construction portion of this project? And I'm talking from the floor to the drapes. I went over the story of two boys, young men that had their tools working out of the back of their vehicle, hanging drywall for $7 a board, doing garages and things like that. I can assure you that once this project kicks off, I will find the element on that project. Is there going to be some sense of accountability when it comes to this developer? Are we going to be able to hold these folks accountable instead of just hurry up and building? A lot of taxpayer dollars are being bypassed by fly-by-night contractors that pay cash instead of hiring folks from the community and out of the local high schools and stuff like that. So I'd like to ask the commission to take into consideration and holding some accountability when it comes to awarding these developments to developers that want to come to the area. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in the council chambers that would like to speak to us on item number 2? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Bo Cooper. I am the entitlement manager with United Engineering Group here representing the property owner. Just wanted to state and thank staff for working this through, getting this in front of you for approval. We've reviewed all the conditions of approval. We have no objections or comments. And just wanted to let you know that I'm here available for any questions.
Any questions of the representative?
Yeah, how many, I read that it's not going to have phases. You're just going to go in and just build the whole thing.
Correct.
And when will the I'll call it a little park there on the, I think that's the north side abutted Bear Valley Road. Yeah, I like that. That looks really nice. Are you going to do that after the whole tract is built out?
I mean, I believe that would be part of the landscape maintenance assessment district. I mean, it would have to be part of the project. It wouldn't be able to be left to the end for the city's design guide.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a triggered C of O. It might be one for all I know. I believe in the city for these parks to be done when it's not phased like this. So.
Okay.
This applicant, the developer, the homeowner, or the property owner, I should say, is not a builder. He's entitling it, but I can say, as you guys probably know, with the market what it is, I've already gotten a few emails from brokers who have home builders looking at it right now, so I don't anticipate it hanging around for very long.
Okay. Yeah, I only mention it because in the past we've had some designs like that and they've failed to accomplish the landscaping and then have left. I know that was prior, recession type, but anyways, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, is there anyone else to speak to us on item number 2? Okay, seeing no one, then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a determination.
I'll move that we approve the item as written.
Commissioner Cook Askins, second.
I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Cook Askins.
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harriman.
Aye.
Chair Kurth.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next be agenda item number 3, the Old Town specific plan. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman Kurth, fellow commissioners. Item number 3 is case PLAN 21-00026. It is an amendment to the Old Town specific plan with an environmental finding of previously assessed to allow for studio efficiency residential units at a minimum size of 320 square feet on property larger than 15,000 net square feet. This is located within the Old Town specific plan on property bounded roughly by the Mojave River and Stoddard Wells Road to the northeast, 11th Avenue to the east, Mojave Drive and Verde Street to the south, and Interstate 15 to the northeast. Currently within the Old Town specific plan, residential units are required to be 500 square feet or larger. That's for a studio or one bedroom. What I'm showing here on the slideshow, this is an efficiency unit. It's actually exactly 320 square feet. But you can see kind of on the upper right-hand corner, that would be the front entry. There'd be kind of an entry foyer, and then to the left, a restroom. As you proceed forward, there'd be a sleeping area straight ahead, and then a cooking and eating area to the left. So each of these efficiency units would still be required to have kitchenette facility and bathroom, and would need to be a minimum of 320 square feet. If you could flip to the next slide, we have some pictures of this actual efficiency unit. So this would be looking in from the front entry area. Next slide. This is the restroom. Next slide. This is the eating area with the kitchenette to the left. Next slide. And then this is the looking the opposite way from the eating area out to the sleeping area. Next slide. As you can see here, there's the kitchenette area and the front door entry. Next slide. And then the bell. Next slide. This is another floor plan of a potential manufactured type of housing unit, which has the same type of features to it, but it fits within the 320 square feet of that efficiency unit. You go to the next slide. These efficiency units are proposed to be permitted within the mixed use retail and mixed use service districts. In the map here, that would be the areas in red and the areas in pink. It's also proposed to be permitted within the medium density district located in yellow. These are intended to encourage redevelopment on sites 15,000 square feet or larger. Smaller lots would still be allowed to have an accessory dwelling unit. But the intent of this code is to encourage consolidation of lots within Old Town that can be redeveloped at higher densities. Larger unit sizes are a common impediment to providing affordable housing, especially for very low and low income households. As you know, we're in the process of updating our housing element, and the state dictates our RHNA allocation, which is our regional housing needs allocation. And for these next 8 years, we're required to provide a little over 8,100 units within the city. Of those 8,100 units, roughly 1,700 of those should be planned for very low income, and 1,100 of those would be planned for low income units. So as you could see, we have roughly close to 3,000 units the city needs to plan for those income categories. And the very low to the low income households range all the way up to 80% of the area median income. But that is a common occurrence that we've heard from housing developers, that saving cost by reducing the unit size is a way to stimulate this type of housing. All right, and so The city does have two sites that we're currently exploring using efficiency units on. One of those would be city-owned property that's located next to the planned wellness center. That's just north of Evadale Park. That would allow for permanent supportive housing. It would allow for residents exiting the wellness center to have a permanent housing solution right next to the wellness center campus where they can still touch base with their case managers. The second proposal that developers wanting to use efficiency units is the former successor assets agency for a former redevelopment agency. And we currently own property north of Forest between 7th and Hesperia Road. And those properties, if the city were to come to terms with a developer to redevelop those sites, could be sites for additional efficiency units. I want to point out that this proposal does not change the density allowed in the districts. So for example, the medium density district in yellow would still only allow 15 units per acre. The mixed use districts would allow up to 25 units per acre for horizontal mixed use and 35 units per acre for vertical mixed use. I also want to point out that should the Planning Commission decide to move forward with recommending approval of this amendment, that a site plan for these developments would be reviewed at a later date by the Planning Commission at a public hearing. So this is, being brought forward in part because, the city is mandated to plan for these type of housing units, plan to meet our RENA obligations. And so with that, should the Planning Commission consider this item, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council find the project previously assessed under the 2018 Old Town Specific Plan Amendment mitigated negative declaration and adopt resolution number P-21-044 recommending City Council approval of specific plan amendment case number PLAN 21-00026. And with that, staff's available should you have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Questions on this amendment for staff?
This Commissioner Cook asks one question. When I was reading the staff report, it mentioned that this item is necessary for the wellness center to move forward. Could you kind of just give some examples or expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, and it could have been drafted a little bit clearer. It's actually for a phase 2 that we're contemplating. As you may recall, I think Cook Askins, you were actually on the Planning Commission, maybe not, but about 6 months ago, we took forward an amendment to allow for navigation centers within the Old Town Specific Plan. So that would permit the wellness center since it's operating as a navigation center.
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank
good.
you.
I have a question. Kind of curious, how many occupants would these units allow? I mean, per unit, how many would actually, let's say adults that live in it? Is it 2 or is there a number that?
Yeah,
was planned?
typically it's 1 to 2. These are typical developments that are geared more towards permanent supportive housing. So there would be property management on site. They may be former homeless. or veterans. But it's not intended for families.
So you're saying that there would be support and some, I guess, supervision, maybe that's not the right word for it, but oversight in the area that those are developed. And
That's the intent. And that's partly why staff's recommending that we only allow the efficiency units on sites that are redeveloping over 15,000 square feet. By doing that, you create a development that has more units, but also has the ability to have that on-site management and oversight.
I have a question, Scott. So if when a developer takes this on, he's pretty much relying on government funding, or the tenants will pretty much, it'll be government funded. I don't think anybody would come out of the wellness center and then move into one of those and be able to afford that. So is that why that location works the best?
We plan in our land use element and the housing element to have affordable housing throughout the city. We're not allowed by the state through their affirmatively furthering for housing standards to concentrate affordable housing all in one area. But with that said, we're trying in the Old Town area specifically to remove barriers. And the zoning standards are a barrier in some sense to stimulate new development, new rooftops. New rooftops then can help sustain more commercial in the area. Like I stated, these projects haven't come before you yet. And this amendment can be modified at a later date should a development or two developments come through that the Planning Commission is not happy with, or has concerns with, or denies. But this isn't, in my professional opinion, something that's going to open up the floodgates to all of, a vast amount of developers that want to build a bunch of efficiency units. It's geared towards more of this, state and federal programs that can provide assistance to the very low income individuals that need housing. And in talking with affordable housing developers is that having a larger unit sometimes is overwhelming to them, and having a more efficiency setting that they have, support services on site, and a population that they may, bond with that's neighboring to them, it seems to work. We're not going out on a limb being the only city that's allowing these type of efficiency units. But as housing construction becomes more costly, that's kind of what's driving these more dense units as well.
Okay, I know the state's mandating all that stuff. I have a hard time understanding how we're going to improve Old Town into a location where people are going to stop and spend some money if there's that kind of housing surrounded all over the place. There's really the income demographic is going to be next to nothing. That's what it sounds like, but you said we can make changes in the future.
Yes, and I don't envision that we'll have, every developer coming in with proposing every unit to be an efficiency unit. There likely be a variety housing sizes.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
The only thought or question that I had is, assuming a project comes through and they're looking to, develop and plan out however many of these studios or efficiency units in the area. Tonight, we're just looking at the approvals for the minimum square footage of this concept. And then the other question is, at the time that somebody did propose this, it would be the standard site plan review, development standards, design standards, all of that would be addressed at that time.
That is correct. This would modify just the minimum size for an efficiency unit down to 320 square feet. However, there's no other modifications to the code, so they're still required to present a site plan, meet all of the development standards of our municipal code and the Old Town specific plan. And that would all be run through staff, run through the state environmental review, and ultimately brought forward to Planning Commission for review. So yeah, this will be, if these projects materialize, you will see and review a site plan at some point in the future.
And that could also encompass the need for, if we believe that the occupants are driving vehicles, then we would look at some kind of parking standards throughout the project, whether that's carport or an attached garage or something like that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
all the parking would be analyzed at that time as well.
Okay, all right. And then you also mentioned this could potentially be an allotment for quite a bit of units, and having to do with the RENA numbers. And I don't remember exactly where we're at with the RENA numbers, but does this put us even, or help us to the point of being compliant?
Well, it'll show the state that we're making efforts to remove some impediments to allowing affordable housing, or housing in general. But ultimately, the state's going to track us over the next 8 years, and this, I think, is a way to accommodate some of the 8,100 units that we have to plan to build in the next 8 years.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
So it's only going to be a fragment of our total housing units at the end of the 8 years.
Mhm.
But it is a component, especially when you look at the income brackets that are targeted with these type of efficiency units.
Mhm. Yeah, once again, we can't force someone to build, but we can make the opportunities a little bit cleaner.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions on this item for Old Town?
It's not on this item specifically, but it relates to this item. Are there any other areas in the city identified for any of these units possibly going in?
No, that's not even contemplated within our land use element. Over the next year or so, we're going to be looking at code amendments to make our municipal code aligned with the latest general plan that's slated to be adopted this coming summer. But I don't envision any proposals that would grant these efficiency units citywide. This would just be in Old Town for now. And, these are living documents that should be reviewed over time. And if the Planning Commission feels that there would need to be modifications to rein these units back, or if you're seeing that they're actually quality developments that we need more of, we could actually expand this outside of Old Town.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and open up the public comment portion for this item. Is there anyone showing that want to talk on Zoom?
Yes, Lizette Angulo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Planning Commissioners, and staff. I was looking at your draft and it's really nice. I thought the concept is really good. But what I didn't see was closet space. Where will they put their clothes to hang unless they have to purchase an armoire? But other than that, I thought it was really nice. And that's it that I have to say.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Angel Esparza.
Good evening, planning commission. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I guess this is the question to the developer. When these come into town, these prefabricated homes, things like that, is there going to be, since it's going to be some type of a prevailing wage job, am I correct? For low income housing?
Yeah, that we don't know tonight. We are just making the looking at the application for lot minimum lot size. We are not discussing construction standards tonight.
Okay. All right. So lot size and things like that. Okay. So I just wanted to, for the record, for the developer, maybe for future, the next meeting, if we could entail a local hire component for those who are, for those prefabricated homes that are going to be coming to town. Maybe get some of them folks off the streets around the area and put them to work and build that community there. That's all I have.
Thank you.
There are no additional Zoom speakers.
Okay, thanks. And is there anyone here in the council chambers that would like to speak to us on agenda item number 3? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the commission for any discussion or determination.
I'll move to approve as written.
Commissioner Thomas, second.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Cook Askins,
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hare.
Aye.
Chair Kurth.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next up is item number 4, the public scoping for the general plan update for the environmental. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Kurth, fellow commissioners. Item number 4 is a public scoping meeting for the preparation of a program environmental impact report for the Victorville general plan update. As you're aware, we kicked off our general plan update in early February of this year, had numerous workshops, and we're at a point now that we want to kick off the environmental review. Part of that is having a scoping meeting. And here to present to us tonight, the scoping meeting presentation is Kristen Blackson. She's a senior project manager with Harrison Associates, our consultant that's been helping us walk us through this general plan update. So with that, I'll hand it off to Kristen, who will go through this presentation for us tonight.
Thank you. Just want to confirm everyone sees a full screen and the full presentation.
Yes, I believe we're seeing it.
Yeah, but it's showing the slides on the side too. So maybe if you could just put it into slideshow view.
Got it. 1 second. Sorry, everyone. We practiced this as well.
You might be able to go to slideshow and just start.
The problem is it is started. It's just the problem with switching of the screens. How's that?
We're showing the file.
So sorry.
It's all right.
I am a professional. I've done this before.
I know Microsoft just updated PowerPoint
Yes.
where I've had this issue before, but it's showing like right now, Kristen is showing the back.
Yeah.
Of it.
Would you like our IT department to put it up on the screen?
I would love that. That
Okay,
would be
well-
great. I'm very sorry. Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you.
Great. So here we are. Thank you for having me. I apologize for that little mix up. So we are here for the City of Victorville Notice of Preparation meeting for your general plan update. Next slide. We have a very brief agenda tonight. The first is we're going to introduce ourselves and then introduce the NOP meeting. A quick overview of the general plan update, EIR. I know you guys have been working on this and have had several workshops with our partners, both at Harris and City Place. So we'll go through that very briefly. And then an overview of the CEQA and the EIR process. We will also have a point to ask any, or for the audience and for commissioners to ask any questions. Next slide. Tonight, we have your city staff team, Scott, Michael, and Alex, and I am Kristen Blackson. I'm with Harrison Associates. Our team is putting together, along with our partners in City Place, the EIR for your general plan update, as well as the general plan update itself, and I'll go through some of those parts tonight. Next slide. What is a purpose of the notice of preparation or the NOP process? The NOP process is associated with projects that are completing environmental impact reports or EIRs. The purpose of the NOP is to provide an opportunity for the public to have input on the environmental analysis included in the EIR. So we want to make sure that the public is providing input and asking any questions to clarify the project, and then giving us input on the scope of the EIR, the content of the EIR, help us to identify the environmental topics. And also during this preparation period, the public can suggest different mitigation measures. The purpose is to collect community comments from the community. Next slide. So what is the general plan update? What project are we doing? We are required by state law to update your general plan. The last major update was in 2008 for the city of Victorville. With this update in 2021, 22, we are looking to update the land use element, the safety element, and with that, we are proposing a new environmental justice element, and that is required pursuant to new state law. that governs general plan and amendments to them. I want to point out that this does include a land use element update, and your land use element is going to facilitate your housing element, the 6-cycle housing element that you guys have just worked on. And that is a separate process that is going through the CEQA process of a negative declaration. And that will be brought forth to you guys separately with that separate CEQA document coming up in the next few months. Next slide. So the land use element, some of the guiding principles, and again, I don't want to go too fast, but I know that you guys have been working on this, and this is the project, and I want to focus on the process of CEQA. So tonight, so you're updating your land use element. Guiding principles is to achieve the community's vision, enhances the community's quality of life, and provides a mix of land uses that promotes sustainability and economic vitality. Those mix of land uses and the change from existing conditions is what the EIR will study for your general plan update. The land use element ensures opportunities for a variety of housing types and affordability level. It provides a clear guide for future growth identified in your housing element update, which the city is currently preparing. And as I said before in the current slide, that is a separate tract and using a separate CEQA document. The changes made to the land use element is the major part of what's being analyzed in our EIR. Next slide. In your land use element, your draft land use element, there are areas that you will be proposing to increase the housing density, expand the list of residential designations, and to add a mixed use designations. You're also adding a health and wellness overlay, encouraging infill in your core and city. And this has been discussed in several different workshops involved, like I said, with our partners also at Harris and also at City Place. So the increase in density, again, is what we'll be looking at in the EIR, and I'll explain a little bit how that's how you can help as far as the scope. Next slide. The safety element will emphasize hazard reduction, accident prevention, and responses for natural and human-made disasters. The highlighted importance of a safety element update is risk reduction, disaster prevention, preparedness, and confirm new legislation that requires the inclusion of climate change adaptation and resilience to your safety element. This safety element has also been presented at several different public workshops listed in this slide. Next slide. The environmental justice element is a new element for the city of Victorville. It's also a new state requirement for jurisdictions with disadvantaged communities and represents an opportunity to develop new goals and policies that reduce the unique compounded health risks in the community. This Victorville environmental justice element would address those topics and ensure that the city's long-term commitment to seeking out implementing solutions to environmental justice issues. This also has been presented at several different workshops listed in this slide. Next slide. So with the adoption of your general plan update, CEQA requires compliance with CEQA, which is what I'm hearing, which is what Harrison Associates is helping you with. What we're proposing is a per program EIR to disclose project impacts and let decision makers inform them in ways to identify or reduce those impacts. This program EIR evaluates these environmental impacts and identifies mitigation measures to streamline further development subject to your general plan. So this program EIR will help streamline that development because we've already looked and analyzed and disclosed these impacts. Next slide. This slide shows a very brief process, the CEQA process for an EIR. Let me know if you have any questions, but we begin with the NOP period and we distribute this notice of preparation, the NOP, to all all interested parties, stakeholders, lead agencies, or excuse me, state agencies, resource agencies, interested parties. This NOP started on October 8th and we will end on November 8th. It's 30 days. Tonight is the public scoping meeting, which is required. Next, what we will do is we'll take your comments and we will prepare the draft EIR. That will also be released for public review. Typically, this is 45 days. So during the 45-day public review, the public will be able to review the entire program EIR and technical appendices. Then the city is responsible to prepare the final EIR, including responses to comments received during public review. The public will also have input at the areas highlighted in yellow at the Planning Commission, and then again at the City Council hearing. After that, we file the notice of determination, which will be the CEQA closure to your general plan update. As you can see in this slide, the areas that are highlighted in yellow are all the areas of opportunities for public input. This is the beginning. Next slide. These are areas that we'll be looking at in the program EIR. These are all the CEQA subject areas. There are 20 now in 2001. Next slide. In support of the program EIR, Harris and our teaming partners will be preparing these technical reports listed on these slides. The air quality report, biological resource report, greenhouse gas technical report, the noise technical report, cultural and historic resources, as well as the transportation and the traffic impact analysis will also be prepared in support of the EIR, available for public review during that 45-day period. Next slide. So what is an NOP? When you get a chance to review it, the NOP is required to contain a brief description of what the project is, where it's located, and most importantly, where the documents can be found so that the public can review. The NOP notifies responsible agencies and other interested parties that the EIR will prepare and collects public input regarding the scope and focus of the upcoming EIR. And as I mentioned before, this NOP period began October 8th and will end on November 8th, 2021. Next slide. The purpose of the NOP meeting and the NOP period is to provide an opportunity for public input, to listen to concerns related to environmental topics, determine the EIR scope and content, identify environmental topics and potential impacts, and also to discuss and identify ways to reduce impacts. Next slide. So this is an opportunity for the public to discuss these environmental issues you'd like to see in the EIR. And are there any questions that you have so far?
The commission have any questions so far on the presentation? Okay, I'm not seeing any, Ms. Blackson.
All right, next slide. So this is not, it's very important to note that this is the public scoping meeting. In order to provide comments, please review the full notice of preparation online here on the city's website, and also provide comments. Next slide. The city's website will have the chance to tell you where to provide comments as well. This slide will show you, this is, again, a schedule slide to show the opportunities that public have to provide input on the environmental impact report. And and its determinations. Next slide. This is where you send your comments to planning@Victorville. Scott Webb is the contact. And here is the city's website, which holds the general plan, and it will also have the notice of preparation and explain how we can comment on that. Next slide. I think this is it. Any questions? Thank you to the IT operator who jumped in when I couldn't figure it out.
Okay, at this point are we opening up public comment? And
Yes, it would be appropriate to.
for any
receive
questions or
feedback,
comments at this
yeah,
time?
that's-
Okay,
Yes.
okay, let's do that. Let's first see who we have online on Zoom.
Angel Esparza.
Are you there, Mr. Esparza?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'd like to take this moment to insert some public comments here for the agenda item that's on the screen. So, again, I'm Angel Esparza. I'm a 22-year member of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. I'm a representative. I live within the vicinity of this project. We believe that you're going to be impacted by the you're going to be impacted by the environmental impacts of the project. The city or county should require the project to be built utilizing a local and skilled and trained workforce. Local hire and skilled and trained workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impacts while benefiting the local economy. In a recent 2020 report, putting California on a high road, a jobs and climate action plan for 2030. The California Workforce Development Board concluded that investments in growing, diversifying, and upskilling California's workforce can positively affect returns on climate mitigation efforts. Moreover, this year, the South Coast Air Quality Management District found that the use of local state certified apprenticeship programs or a skilled and trained workforce with a local hire component can result in air pollutant reductions. Recently, the study of Hayward in Northern California adopted skilled and trained workforce requirements into its general plan and municipal code. Local skilled and trained workforce requirements can boost economic development and mitigate transportation and greenhouse gases by minimizing vehicles traveled on the road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
There are no additional Zoom speakers.
Thank you. And is there anyone here in the audience in the council chambers that would like to speak on item number 4 tonight? Okay, seeing no one here to speak on that, I will close the public hearing portion of this agenda item.
Chairman Kurth, if I might, since you closed the hearing, I just wanted to point out that like Ms. Blackson stated, that the NOP period ends on November 8th. So the public comments that we received today and any written correspondence that's given to us between that period will be then reflected in the draft EIR and then presented to the Planning Commission for review at a later date. And I also wanted to point out too, there was reference to the safety element and the environmental justice element. They were mentioned in public workshops, but we haven't really dived into it yet. Those public workshops to present our findings to the Planning Commission will happen in the winter and spring to come. We have done a lot of work on those elements, but it's been behind the scenes with, we have a community advisory committee that was formed for the environmental justice element. That was based off of surveys that were put out in the first workshop. We also have an internal safety committee that's been meeting, mainly city staff, to identify the improvements we need to make to our safety element. So those will be presented to you more in the future. But with that, we welcome any comments the commissioners have at this point, and then there's really no motion or action to be made at this point. And we'll return with our findings at a later date.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, as well as any final comments based on this, where we're at right now with the scoping period on the CIR from the commissioners. All right, seeing no comments, then I just make one more reminder, like the presentation had said, that if there is folks out there that would like to make their comments be known or their thoughts regarding the environmental report, the email contact is planning@victorvilleca.gov. So that will wrap that one up, and we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is the Senate Bill 9 requirements.
Thank you, Chairman Kurth, fellow commissioners. Most recently, Governor Newsom signed into law Senate Bill 9. And we have Senior Planner Alex Hadigi here to give you a brief overview of how that's going to impact single-family zoning within the city of Victorville and across the entire state.
Off and then back on to see if it works.
Is a discussion of
Okay, the mic.
California Senate Bill 9. This was a new bill, as Scott noted, signed by the governor on September 16th. So it's just about a month old, after it already went through the state Senate and state assembly. So there's two main components of this Senate bill that are going to affect single family residential zoning. And they're broken up into what I called in the staff report, the residential units and to the urban lot splits. These allowances are going to be to every single family zone in the city, would include specific plans, would include planning and developments. And it becomes effective on January 1st, 2022, regardless of if we have an ordinance in effect at that point. We can still defer back to the Senate bill. So as I'll discuss later, we do have some plans moving forward to address that via code amendment. However, briefly, Senate Bill 9 for residential units would allow any single family property to add a second unit on the lot. There's very limited instances where the city can prevent that from happening. Examples of prevention would be parcels that have habitat for protected species, so parcels with Joshua trees. Housing that would require demolition or alteration of low-income housing, or housing that's been occupied by a tenant in the last 3 years, so rental housing. Also, there's areas such as if a home were to demolish more than 25% of the exterior structural walls, there'd be a provision for the city to potentially block that, assuming it hasn't been occupied by a tenant. Or I'm sorry, if it has been occupied by a tenant. So largely what it would allow is in a single family zone where right now our code allows one house, a property owner could come and put a second home on that unit. In terms of setbacks, we can only require 4 feet in the side and rears. And in terms of parking, we can only require 1 parking space. Additionally, if it's located within a high quality transit corridor or a major transit stop within a half a mile, then we can't require any parking. Within our city, and based on the definition of what a high quality transit corridor or major transit corridor is, that's essentially your large scale bus stops that have through lanes. So the transit center in Old Town, the Mall of Victor Valley, Victor Valley College would be considered areas that they'd have to be within a half a mile of one of those facilities to have a no parking requirement. And on lots, regular 7,200 square foot lots, if someone were to put a second unit, they are still permitted to have an accessory dwelling unit. So total the potential for 3 units on a single property. It does appear to staff from our reading of the bill that this would preclude developers from coming in and doing large scale whole tracts of this. It does largely seem to be a bill aimed at creating additional dwelling units via existing property owners. And I think the reason it has exemptions for housing that has been occupied by a tenant, it's aiming to prevent property owners from out of town or who own a 5 or 6 different properties from coming in and doing all 5 of them and creating a bunch of units. It's aimed at, from what we can tell, that the homeowner that wants, maybe you have a half-acre lot in the square mile area on a corner, and you can put a second unit on there. You have plenty of room to give them access to the street for your second unit, and perhaps that would be the kind of instances we'd see. That is what I'm calling the residential unit component of the bill. The urban lot split unit or portion of the bill would essentially allow any single family lot in the city to be subdivided. That would be ministerially approved. Same goes for residential units, which means there'd be no public hearing. It'd be ministerially through the zoning administrator with a set of objective zoning standards that we could enforce that are very limited. And if we do enforce objective zoning standards, it's still, we could not prevent anything less than an 800 square foot unit. So if we're going to, put in objective standards for, let's say, recreational space, if our recreational space standard would in effect make a unit be 600 square feet, then we have to allow that deviation to happen by right. For an urban lot split, what it would take is, or what it would allow, I'm sorry, would be to allow a regular single family zone lot, so 7,200 square foot, to be subdivided into 2 lots with an administrative process. And what the Senate bill says is that they have to be approximately equal in size or within 40% of the size of the primary or the original lot, and no less than 1,200 square foot each. 1,200 square feet, I'm sorry. Many of the same allowances for residential units that would allow us to block a lot split are applicable here. So if the parcels are habitat for special status species, such as the Joshua tree, housing where demolition or alteration of a low-income unit would happen, or if it's tenant property, that tenant for the last 3 years, if there's been a tenant on that property, would not be eligible for a lot split. These lot splits also, when they're split, they would be allowed to put 2 units on each one of the lots. The only caveat to that would be applicants who apply for an urban lot split by the Senate bill are required to sign an affidavit that say they intend to occupy one of the housing units for at least, as their principal residence for at least 3 years. If someone were to propose a lot split, we also cannot require dedication of roadways, and we can't use that as a means to address non-conforming code issues. So a lot of things the state has thrown on us that we are unfortunately tasked with implementing, regardless of any previous actions we've done with regards to zoning. There's a last part of this Senate bill, which is kind of minor. It addresses tentative track maps, so like the one we saw earlier tonight. Our municipal code currently allows tentative track maps to have a 36-month life from approval. So within the first 36 months of their life, developer or property owners would either record the map or come back to the planning commission and ask for an extension. What Senate Bill 9 also allows us to do, this part isn't a requirement, but allows us to grant 48 months off the bat instead of 36. So to go from 3 years to 4 years off the bat for developers. So, but that's a choice we get to make on that aspect of it. So moving forward, staff will plan to take a couple actions. We will be proposing a development code amendment in the coming months. Again, there is no requirement for an ordinance to be in place. The Senate bill will guide us to the implementation, but for clarity, for ease of implementation for staff and for understanding by the community, we felt it would be best to be addressed in a development code amendment. Would also give us the opportunity to roll into that updated accessory dwelling unit standards, which we brought a few years ago, but have since been updated again by the state to provide more allowances to property owners. And then lastly, we would have an update to our application for the zoning administrator actions to go over the required items and kind of pinpoint the things that are required, can be required, and what we can address via the limited allowances that the Senate bill provides us. So more to come on that, but we wanted to open up the discussion so the commission isn't completely blindsided when code amendments are proposed that discuss this topic.
Understand. Thank you for that. Stick by 1 second here. Before we open up for public comment, is there any questions from the commission for Mr. Haragi at this point, based on his presentation?
Alex, I'm sorry, I missed it. When is this supposed to take place? I guess it was signed by the governor in September.
Yes. January 1st will become. And we've already started to receive some phone calls, only a few limited, and it seems to be non-residents of the properties. So what would the calls we got, which would be exempt under or precluded from utilizing the Senate bill.
I have a couple questions, and you probably mentioned them, but it went by pretty fast. The minimum square footage would be 800.
So the minimum square, we can put any development standard that we see fit. So we can apply our current development standards for single family homes. However, if our standard would make it impossible to put 2 units on a lot, then we have to adjust our standards to allow down to an 800 square foot lot. I guess an example that would be like if someone were to try to attempt to utilize this in a PUD zone, 5,000 or 6,000 square foot lot, real limited on rec space in the back. They wanted to put a unit in the back. And there was no possible way they could meet our requirement of 2,000 square feet of recreational space. We then have to allow them to make a smaller unit down to 800. But even if they put 800 and they still were not going to be able to hit the 2,000 mark of rec space, we still have to allow at least a 800 square foot.
And go ahead.
Good.
Sorry.
Okay, and you said the setback would be 4 feet. Is that to the primary residence also, or is that just to the perimeter of the property?
So for new structures, Senate bill says that side and rear property lines is 4 feet. Existing structures, we cannot require any new setbacks. So if there's an accessory pool house, for instance, that was built to 0 property line, they can convert that and we cannot require additional setbacks. Regarding location to other structures, as long as they comply with building code, they can be next to it or they can be separate. So whether or not they can share a common wall, they can be attached, detached. I'm sure that the construction methods of requiring a firewall in certain distances would preclude getting too close to existing structures if they want to be attached, but by the bill, they're allowed to be attached.
And the parking, I was a little confused about the parking. So you'd be required to provide 1 parking space unless you're so close to public transportation. Now, so this all applies even to a planned unit development where everybody parks in the street already?
The way the bill is worded applies to any single family.
I find that just absolutely crazy. And then how about the utilities? Do they have to be on a separate, if it's a separate dwelling, it's not consolidated to the primary? Do they have to have their own utility, gas meter, Edison, or are they able to just operate under and through the primary residence?
If it was a separate lot, if the lot split was used and they were separate lots, they would absolutely have to be on separate service. going off our experience with accessory dwelling units where it's a second unit already allowed by state law. We've allowed either, or we've allowed separate connections, or we've allowed them to utilize the existing connection. Office in New York for 2 units.
Okay, and so I'll just use the example of where I live. So my neighbors or the people that are residing in my planned unit development, then they can turn their garages into living space. And therefore they're not, they do not have to comply with our ordinance of the city. Don't we have one that you must have a garage?
Correct. We do have an ordinance that currently, regardless of Senate Bill 9, with the accessory dwelling unit allowances provided by the state, we are required to allow garage conversions without requiring additional covered parking.
So in essence, you can turn your garage into a living and eliminate your garage. And you can also put another unit on the lot and there's nowhere to park. I mean, there's virtually nowhere to park in these neighborhoods already. I just don't get the logic in that.
Yeah, the state for accessory dwelling units, the last amendment they made took out the allowances for municipalities to require replacement parking. That's one of the large scale changes between our current accessory dwelling unit ordinance and what we will be proposing is to comply with code. And then with the Senate Bill 9 requirements, it kind of takes that a step further. It says that 1 per unit, 1 parking space per unit, unless you're within a half a mile of a high quality transit corridor or major transit stop, which again, within our city limits is very limited to where that would actually be applicable.
So if I know you mentioned about you can only take down 25% of or demo 25% of the primary. What if they choose to go to 2 stories in an area that isn't zoned or you're not allowed to go up? Would they be okay doing that, even though would that eliminate our rules in a certain area? Would it just, so it could take away somebody's view lot and there's nothing anybody can do, and the homeowner, say, with the view lot, and it's obstructed by somebody adding on to the top, that there's no liability whatsoever? I mean, I know that's kind of a legal question, but I believe obstructing somebody's view lot is going to be a cost, a negative. It's going to be a hit. But the state is.
There's nothing in the bill that allows, well, I guess in that instance, you're correct. A building height would be an objective development standard. I think those instances would be limited, and the 25% is rule is geared towards lots that have been occupied by a tenant in the last 3 years. If you're a homeowner and you've lived in your house for 5 years and you want to do the second unit, the 25, you're allowed by the Senate bill to demolish more than 25%. So it doesn't preclude you from doing that. Again, going back to my original presentation, it appears as though the intent of the bill is really geared towards people who own homes and want to add that unit rather than a developer coming in and doing large scale, a whole block. In fact, there's language in the urban lot split section that notes that the same entity cannot do adjacent lots, or even if a single entity is working in concert with the owner of a neighboring lot, they cannot do it. So it's, although it does provide a lot of allowances to do things that are against what our code aims for now, there are some limited protections in here to prevent established neighborhoods from completely converting.
Okay, enough from me for now.
Any others? I've had, you mentioned that would it be January 1st that it becomes a ministerial approval? Meaning that our city's elected or appointed officials would not have any, would be bypassed from? decision
Correct.
making?
Without a public hearing. It's on a discretionary review. It's a permitted or not.
Wow.
So at that level, it would go through our zoning administrator, similar to how we review new single family home, infill scatter lots. That's the process we envision that it'll go through, or we would propose to the planning commission.
Or we trust our zoning administrator, but this is a big, could be a big hit, you know, and I don't think, I'm not sure. I'll hold my comments till the end. A question for you is, I think you mentioned the water service, but I've seen a few examples around here and in other areas where people were kind of pushing this and saying, hey, I want to start building, you know, homeowners were wanting to build on so they could rent out for additional income. And the sewer capacities weren't there. They said, hey, you're allowed to do this, but you do need to meet certain standards and our sewers are failing. And so if you want to dig up a mile of sewer, which is not financially feasible, you can. How do you see this playing out, you know, say over the next year or two when people want to do a few of these on the street and our sewer is already at capacity or starting to fail?
We haven't, with accessory dwelling units, and granted that's been limited, we've only seen a handful of those come through. The impacts have not been enough to warrant that in a large quantity. This bill doesn't speak directly to that issue, whereas accessory dwelling units says that if you're on septic, you can allow a second septic, you can allow an increase in size. I would envision with regard to sewer systems that part of the building permit process, there is protections in the bill that does say it has to meet all building code requirements. So obviously one of those is connection to some type of sanitary sewer system. So we would be forced to address that via the building permit plan check process. Hopefully we catch it early on in the site plan review, so it can be conditioned accordingly as needed by the zoning administrator.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Brady. And I'll open it up for public comments now, starting with the online Zoom.
There are no comments via Zoom.
Thank you. And opening up comments here in the council chambers. Are there anyone here that would like to speak to us on this agenda item? Yeah, would you please? I'm not sure if the microphone's working there correctly or not, but we got to at least try to get you on your record. We'll get your comments either way, though.
Did Hesperia not have this problem too last year, and they fixed it in their zoning laws?
I can try to elaborate on that. Since this is state legislation, there's no city that can avoid these regulations. My understanding is that Hesperia did a valid measure, but even that at the local level doesn't trump what the state enacted.
So this will supersede that.
Well, it's kind of two separate standards, but let's say if Hesperia did enact a larger lot standard, which the voters approve, that would still be in place possibly. But if you had a larger lot, the state allows you then to possibly subdivide it, put a second unit. So you could essentially have, if you don't subdivide it, you could have a second unit and an accessory dwelling unit. So a total of 3 dwelling units on a property. If you then subdivide it, you could possibly have a total of, 4. So two dwelling units on one property, 2 dwelling units on the other property.
I think the word that's bothering me is ministerially. Is this going to be a forced thing, or that's kind of where I'm going with this?
Yeah. If I could just elaborate a little bit, we wanted to bring this forward just because it is new legislation. We want to, inform the planning commission and public about what the state's enacting. The ministerial process means that an applicant can come in, a property owner can come in ask for a second unit. And the city has to grant that if they meet the objective standards. Now, that's what would be forthcoming. And I know this is just new legislations, it was just signed a little over a month ago.
Right.
So we'll be working towards bringing forward a code amendment that the planning commission would weigh in on, city council would weigh in on, that would outline objective standards for these type of units. So when an applicant comes into the city, staff would then look at those objective standards. They have no discretion in them at all. And then if they meet those objective standards, then they'd be issued a permit to build.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? Yes. Yeah, please do. No.
Do those wells only, still have permission to add on? So would it be 4 properties on one parcel? And then would they be allowed as an accessory unit?
I believe that, so the allowances by the Senate bill.
Could you kind of repeat what she just said in case it didn't pick up on the mic?
Sure. The question was, essentially, could they subdivide and subdivide again and put more houses and put more houses again? More like 4 on each lot?
I'm sorry. But, talking about one parcel of land being split, correct? And each portion of that into 4 portions, right?
It would be split into 2. One lot could be split into 2 lots. Right, and then it's important to note too that the Senate bill does not allow multiple use of the bill allowances. So if someone had a 1 acre lot and wanted to use this to do two 2.5 acre lots, they couldn't come back in a year and then make splitting it. That's correct. It's limited to use one time only for the purpose of lot.
And you said that's within a year period or?
Forever the way the bill reads.
So
Once the allowances of Senate Bill 9 are used to subdivide a lot, it cannot be used again on those lots created to make additional lots.
Even if it's a large lot to begin with. Keeps
Correct.
getting weirder.
Can I ask a question still? Do they have to pay to subdivide?
There's nothing that says in the bill that we're not allowed to charge our typical fees.
Okay.
on the process, so.
Yeah, because that's not cheap. But if the bill is gonna just okay.
So in terms of plan check fees, permit fees, entitlement fees, those would still all be applicable.
Thanks. Did that help kind of answer your question, ma'am? Mm-hmm. In our just the recommendation in the staff agenda here, it just says no recommended action at this time. Future municipal code amendment proposals require planning commission review and recommendation prior to city council. Is that what you just explained, Scott? Is that the standards will come to us at least so we can kind of put it down what your direction would be in the future and then we're hands off? Is that right?
Yeah, so what we want to do is as this new legislation evolves and we get more feedback from other cities on how they're drafting, we'll draft a code amendment to bring forward to the planning commission. It may not get approved right at the start. You'll probably have feedback that you want to include. We'll have to then analyze if that feedback complies with the state law. If it does, we can incorporate it. And then we'll have set standards that the planning commission can realize that, hey, this all of the new second units will be held to these standards. And then that'll give clear direction to staff and to the development community that would like to propose one of these units, if it's allowable or not. Because there is some instances where a lot split is not possible, or it may require them to demo their existing structure. And just like, the economics may not work. I don't envision us to get a mad influx of these units, just because of the economics may not work in our area currently. But at the accessory dwelling units, in the LA area, they are flourishing. And I guess we're kind of fortunate where we're at, because we won't see that, or I'm not envisioning us to see that at the start. But as property values continue to increase, we'll see more requests for these type of accessory. And
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna overrun overnight, but
Yeah.
if there's a way for people to make more money, we're gonna do it, and I just do see that even just a few of these doubling up on even just one cul-de-sac when it comes to parking and everything that we have right now, it would be a bit disastrous, I think.
I just heard a comment from Vertec today that they're having problems down San Bernardino Valley with accessory units on cul-de-sacs, because they require separate trash cans, because they're essentially almost the size of the main dwelling unit. And there's limited space to put a trash can on a cul-de-sac to start with. So then you're adding more barrels. And then on top of that, you've most likely removed some of the on-site parking. So people are trying to park on the street on top of that.
You have to put the trash cans on top of the cars, I guess.
It might end up that way.
Okay, so there's no recommended action on this one. Anybody got anything finalized to say, or are we ready to move on? Thanks for the good news, Alex. We're ready to go on to item number 6, which we're picking up from the study session on gas and car washes from the last meeting. Staff had given us information and went to a lot of work on some pretty detailed maps on the locations of these uses. And I think it was Commissioner Harriman that wasn't here. So we did want to, continue this. So you had some discussion as well. So I was just wondering, did you have some information to begin with?
Sure, Chairman Kurth, for Commissioner Harriman's benefit, I could give a brief overview of what staff's done. Back in August, the Planning Commission voiced interest in hearing more about the influx of gas stations and car washes within the city. So this map that's shown here shows the proposed facilities and also existing facilities. And there's a legend at the top there, which tabulates to the total number of these facilities. But we do still have a lot in the pipeline of these facilities. The discussion that we had in September, when Commissioner Harriman was not present, I mentioned that with future proposals, and we've already added this to the application, but developers will now be required to provide a feasibility report that shows the economics of their proposal, that it's something that will last over time. These are studies that they likely do before they submit a project anyway, but we've required that fiscal feasibility study to be provided with a new application, and that information divulged to the Planning Commission when it would be brought forward for your review. What we found though is other cities permit and conditionally permit these type of uses in commercial and industrial zones. So we're not out of line with other cities. There are some cities, I wouldn't say a vast majority of the cities, but there are a few cities that can create policies or other municipal code standards which maybe limit the density at intersections. But I would state that we do have a conditionally permitted zoning code right now for these two uses. So that means that the planning commission has the discretion whether or not to approve another one if it's not appropriate. So there is some safeguards there if the planning commission doesn't particularly want another use, or it feels that it would create some impacts that were negative to the surrounding area. So there are some safeguards there, but we are a growing city, so it is not uncommon to see additional gas stations and car washes in the pipeline. We do have a lot that are under construction. I know, I'm not sure if it's like pent up demand, but some of them, most of them are following the same development pattern that we've seen in the past. For example, Bear Valley and Interstate 15. There's a good number of gas stations there. We're starting to see a number that matches that at newer interchanges like La Mesa, Nisqually. So, and it's based on market demand. And I think these studies that we'll present when we have new proposals can help shed light on that. But we're here to listen to you. And if you have feedback and guidance that we should enact on these type of developments, we'd like to hear it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Herman?
So the reason I brought that forward is obviously I don't want to see any blight in our city. And to be perfectly honest with you, I never see anybody using a car wash at a gas station. You can put gas in your car and it says they'll give you a break on the cost of the gallon if you have a car, or vice versa, they'll give you the free car wash, okay? I never see anybody using those. You got the Valu on Bear Valley and Amargosa, never see anybody. The Chevron station on Mall and Bear Valley Road, I get my motor oil changed at the place behind there. He has shut his down. He says he didn't get any business whatsoever. So it wasn't even worth him to keep it open. So what he's done is he's letting a car detailer in his parking lot rather than use the car wash because it was too expensive for him. He just wasn't drawing enough revenue from it. So my only concern is it's just like having too many of anything, eventually they start dropping off. So, and I understand that's at the discretion of us if somebody brings a project forward. So anyways, that's kind of explaining where my train of thought was on all of it. And I think I've already seen one of our older car washes go out of business on 7th Street. There's a couple of them there, but one of them I went by today and it shut down. And then I don't see the one staying open very long here on, is that Civic and Palmdale, the indoor kind of like one behind Del Taco. So that was my concern, but I appreciate all that work you put into that, Scott.
I think your comment about might be valid, especially in the future, if some more of these smaller gas stations, if their tunnels go vacant and it does become a problem, vagrants or something like that occupying it. I like the comments that Mr. Webb had made last time and tonight, stating that they are going to look a little bit deeper into the applications of those coming forward to help us verify the feasibility, through and
Yeah.
through the development and what they're planning on using it for. So I think that'll help.
And I understand a lot of those are franchises, right? And so as a franchisee, maybe, that's their master, if you want to be a franchisee for Chevron or what have you. So anyways, okay, thank you.
Any more comments?
I think Scott touched on it. I was concerned about, again, the density. I'm not so concerned about new gas stations because there are some areas that the citizens have to travel quite a ways to get to gas stations. But as far as having the car washes and so forth, I don't know that that serves any real good purpose, because I'm like you, maybe I don't see the economics of it because I'm not there, at the cash register, but I'm like you, I don't see where it really helps. But I'd like to see at least some discretion. And I like what you're doing with the market study, just to see what the feasibility of a station going in. But 4 and 5 stations on a corner gets to be a bit much, especially in some areas.
Yeah. If I could point out a tool that could help staff, but it's not rigid like a code amendment. And this commission hasn't approved one of these in a while, but there's a list of planning commission policies that staff keeps on file, which helps give us guidance to developers, so they don't get too far into the process and do all their environmental reviews and then show up at the planning commission and the planning commission doesn't want it. So we could draft a policy for the planning commission to review, which will help give staff guidance and we would share that guidance with new developers. So for example, I've seen another city that has like no more than two at a specific intersection. But the policy would keep it flexible. So if they still understood that the planning commission has concerns of more than 2 at a particular intersection, they would know that up front, and the risk would be on them to then prove that to the planning commission still. But it would be more transparent if we had a policy of your concerns, so we could share that with developers before they sunk more money into the pre-development process. Same with accessory car washes. I do believe that there's a newer trend. These accessory car washes aren't keeping up with the express car washes that are more convenient, faster, have the vacuums that you don't have to put coins in. So there could be a policy direction that we draft that would still allow the gas station, but maybe the developer would opt to put a different use instead of an accessory car wash in that space. So
or they may come back in that point and show us historically with their other locations why it makes sense. But either way, we got to be convinced a little bit more, right?
But it would be more transparent to have a policy so we could give that guidance to a developer up front so they know what they're getting into. That, a conditional use permit's discretionary to start with, but if we know some concerns up front, and if the planning commission wants to create a policy, we could draft something and, noodle over it for the next couple of meetings until it's something that the planning commission is supportive of, but we can keep that policy on hand, and any new developments that come in will reference that policy and provide that guidance to the developers.
What I also noticed, some of them are now going with food franchises. So I've been in one where there's a Subway, and I think there's a Jimmy John's and the one near my house, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's Commissioner Cook asked, I was going to mention the same thing. That may be another avenue, a restaurant type thing rather than car wash. So.
I'm a little leery. I know Commissioner Thomas mentioned limiting possibly or taking a look possibly at all. And we can do that if the commission chooses to do that, but I'm a little leery on that point as well, because I know in my entire life of driving, I've learned one thing, that if there's one gas station on the corner, the price is high. If there's two, they compete. If there's three, it gets a little better. And that's just better for the consumer and the citizens usually, and they come in and they compete. And if there's only one and it's way out nowhere land, you better believe the price is going to be way high. So that, you know, it does keep that in. And then we saw on La Mesa and Mariposa, our newest fuel station on that corner, which is a Shell. They're up and just about up and running. And I know that developer, and they had used the fuel station to kick it off because that was their obvious, and that allowed them to go into phase 2, which was food uses, which are under construction now. And then that gave us a new signal at that intersection as well. So these things do help, you know, indirectly sometimes. So I'd want to be a little careful of, you know, pushing too hard on any of those types of things. But I'm willing to look at them for a policy that we think makes sense.
So I don't really need a motion, but it seems like the consensus is that the commission's wanting to look at a policy to provide guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say 4 heads were shaking yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then that's the last item. Next up, we have general public comments. Do we have anybody online that's wishing to speak general public comments at this time?
I have no speakers via Zoom, but I do have in-person speakers.
Okay.
The first speaker is Sandy Bowen.
So since this item isn't on the agenda, I'll just give you guys a heads up. The city council asked us to come here and speak our piece with you guys and let you know what we're observing in the community. So I'm going to read an impact statement here for you. And my name is Sandy Bowen, and I'm a member of the High Desert Community Coalition. Over the last 3 months or so, the members conducted a visual assessment of more than 60 off-sale alcohol retailers in Victorville. We wanted to share our eye-opening results in hopes that our efforts will be useful in restoring our city to the family-friendly, quiet community it should be. Our collective data revealed that more than half of Victorville's off-sale liquor stores are out of compliance with various public health and safety standards set forth by California's Department of Alcohol and Beverage Control Board. Case in point, one such safety standard requires that off-sale liquor stores have no more than 33% of their window space covered or blocked. Our observations revealed at least 1/3 of the 60 alcohol retail outlets assessed were in violation of this minimal standard. Although covered windows might seem like a trivial violation, it might mean the difference between the ability to correctly assess a situation or having someone needlessly stumble into a potentially deadly confrontation. So correcting a violation of this nature would seem to be a no-brainer and a very important first step to shining light into otherwise dark corners. Our assessments also uncovered some troubling issues, such as on-site alcohol consumption and actual drug use at a few of the stores. And we're not talking about pot, you know. Several stores had trash everywhere, unmistakable stench of urine, empty airplane bottles of booze, smashed beer cans all over the parking lots. Not really something I ever expected to find in our neighborhood liquor stores. And when I see these kinds of activities or sketchy behaviors going on, I tend to shy away from that area, and I'm sure I'm not alone. We appreciate the passage of Measure P and the obvious steps the city has taken to address some of the problems in our community. However, this is not the kind of problem that a little extra patrolling can permanently solve. We would like to see these businesses implement principles of crime prevention through environmental design. We can provide you with more information about this concept, and our sheriff's department has several experts on the subject. It will benefit the businesses and it will benefit the community. Businesses that negatively affect the health and safety of our residents should be responsible retailers and follow a set of basic operational standards. This should apply not only to liquor stores, but to smoke shops, selling meth pipes, and other businesses affecting public safety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Our next speaker is Olivia Karapanian.
Thank you guys for having me. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. we can.
Okay. I also have a comment. I've prepared. I'm also part of the High Desert Community Coalition. And I am a new resident, relatively new resident to the High Desert. I'm from Los Angeles originally. And I am a concerned citizen and somebody that really wants to participate in the community. So I'll share my comment. I have it here. Good evening. I'm here tonight to ask you to address the sale of meth pipes at the local smoke shops here in Victorville. I've learned that they are for sale basically at every smoke shop here in the High Desert. And this is a very big concern, especially as a family member, as a mother. I have children, small children. We've reviewed some numbers on people visiting the hospital due to meth use. When you look at the numbers for San Bernardino County, the 35 to 39-year-old age group had the highest number of meth-related hospital visits. The 50 to 54-year-old age group had almost just as many. This signifies a long-standing unaddressed substance use disorder among these patients. But younger people are also affected too. Oh, I'm fogging up my glasses, I'm sorry. Meth pipes are readily available, and we've gone into these smoke shops and seen that they're sitting on the counter and they're quite cheap. It's unfortunate that California has seen such a decline in our public spaces. I moved here. It's affordable. I was looking forward to the growth and development here in Victorville, and I've had my own personal experience with transients and vagrants. I'm a social worker, so I'm not afraid of this population, but when I'm not in that setting, it can be quite intimidating. There were some other matters that were also concerning us. Almost all of the stores provided items used to sell illegal narcotics, such as scales and small baggies. They also sold items used to consume high concentrates of THC after it was been extracted from cannabis. As you may know, the extraction process is very dangerous and has caused several fires in the High Desert over the last several years. At least one smoke shop was selling several varieties of propane torches, including one small enough to fit in someone's pocket. Some of the smoke shops didn't have the required signage prohibiting those under 21 from entering. Many of their windows covered, just as the liquor stores. There were excessive loitering and parking lots in the parking lots of several of these shops. And as a new community member, I don't know if you guys read The Atlantic. There was an article published today that talked about meth, and I mean, it's so sad to see our community suffering because of this drug. But there is a new type of meth. They call it P2P, and I highly recommend all of our council members and our commissioners and planning elected officials to read up on this, because we see it daily. We have our tents in those vacant lots. We see them outside of Vons. I won't take my small children grocery shopping anymore. And it's unfortunate because there are many resources. As a social worker, I feel that it is my duty to assist those who are struggling, but I also feel compelled to empower those populations. And when we're seeing such rampant mental illness, allowing the accessibility of these meth pipes and other things, and not addressing the issues that are causing transients, vagrancy, crime. I think it's doing a disservice to our community and those who are suffering. So I compel the commission to really look into, removing those meth pipes and making it less accessible, especially to minors, because the smoke shops are not, they're not making sure that these children are not having access to those accessories. So I'm a little nervous. It's my first time, so I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
It's okay. Thank you for your comments.
There are no additional speakers.
Additional speakers. Okay, so I will close the public hearing portion, and I would just make a reminder to the few folks that have come here from the coalition that if you have indeed, tracked actual legitimate violations with any of these types of businesses, you can always, I know you probably know this, but feel free to work with, the code enforcement, get with them and say, hey, here's what we noticed. Can you check this out? Because sometimes just because of the volume, they are a little more reactive. So sometimes it takes folks to share what they know to then get the reaction. And I know what you're saying about the drugs and all that, reading and looking at the numbers. We all see the pandemic numbers and everything else, and that's what we're all focused on. But if you look at the meth, the fentanyl, the new fentanyl, and all opioids, the numbers are astounding, puts COVID to shame. And that's a real problem. Before we adjourn, reports from commission members. We'll start with Commissioner Harriman.
Nothing, I guess. It's good to be back. I'm sorry I missed that one meeting. I do want to say one thing, and that is last night at the city council meeting, our honorable mayor nominated a person for the planning commission. And I've never seen somebody with so many credentials that would, bring him to the planning commission. It was an excellent choice. And I would just hope that the city council quits playing politics and get us somebody in here. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Cook Askins.
Yes, as always, thank you to the staff, Mr. Webb and your staff for all your work you do. And I'd also like to make mention of one of our pillars in the community that recently passed, Colonel Felix Diaz. He's a real pillar in our community for many, many years and been influential in my life for the past 20 years. So I want to publicly recognize him and offer condolences to his family and our community as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
I also would like to commend you and your staff. Alex, thank you so much for answering questions tonight. Being somewhat new up here, some of my questions may seem a little naive, but I am interested. I am really interested and want to know what the issues are. So work with me. And to my fellow commissioners, it's just a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think any of our questions up here are naive. If we're not sure, we better ask. So that's a good thing. And based on what Commissioner Harriman said too, I watched the meeting last night. We have a former planning commissioner here who as well would have been a great addition back onto this planning commission. Unfortunately, it's frustrating when I see what's going on. The council's hands do seem to be tied. It's political. The considerations are based on gender and skin tone, not individual character and experience. And it's unfortunate. Anything from staff to report before we wrap it up?
Yes, I have two items. Next Friday, the city is holding a Malibu trunk or treat drive-through event for Halloween in the south parking lot of City Hall. So there'll be representatives from each department out there handing out candy for those that drive through. That's from 4 to 7 p.m. Also, to give you an update on our housing element. As you know, we routed the housing element this summer to the state, and they have provided comments mid-September. And those comments and our responses were characterized by HCD as a slight layup. So meaning that we don't really have a lot of corrections, but we do, we are producing a revised housing element that'll be circulated to the public sometime next week. So I wanted to just make that statement tonight that we will be having a revised housing element that addresses the state's comments. And we'll put that out there for public review for about 2 weeks before we then take that draft and submit it again to the state. Once that is circulated, we'll bring back that to the Planning Commission for consideration. And then ultimately the city council will recommend that they adopt the housing element. So with that, that's all I had.
Okay, thanks. And just to confirm that there are, between now and the next meeting, which is the next regular meeting is 3 weeks from now for the Planning Commission, there are no more, no general plan updates or any special meetings between now and then, right?
That is correct.
Okay, just want to make sure for the calendar, for our calendars. And with that, thank you everyone for coming tonight. Meeting adjourned.